I'm sure you're all coming from a wide range of different contexts and motivations for being here, and I hope this session can help demonstrate approaches that are already being taken to engaging with landowners and help to demystify questions about engagement between landowners and communities. As I hope you know, the work of the Scottish Land Commission is guided by the Land Rights and Responsibility Statement, which is a set of 7 principles focused around fairness, transparency, community engagement and opportunity. And these principles are supported by a set of protocols, which you can find on the Land Commission website. They're really helpful for anyone who wants to explore the framework of land rights and responsibilities in Scotland and what everyone should be able to expect in relation to how land matters are dealt with. And if you want to know more about that, there's also a recorded webinar on our YouTube channel that you can watch again. But this evening, we're really delighted to host 3 speakers that are all doing groundbreaking work in creating and supporting engagement, dialogue and collaboration between communities and local landowners and managers. From the Northwest 2045 Regional Land Use Partnership, or RLUP project, we have Rachel Skene, the RLUP project manager, and Sara Harkins, who's one of 3 Land Plus Kinlochbervie project leads and the owner of Kinlochbervie estate. So Rachel and Sara are both here on behalf of the Northwest 2045 Land Plus team. They'll give us a quick overview of the project and share some insights into their approach to place-based collaborative working. And I know their work very well because I sit on the Northwest RLUP board, and I really have huge respect and admiration for the work that they do and the way that they can articulate the nature and integrity of their place-based community-led approach. And then we'll hear from Andy Rockall, who's the director of the Community Woodland Association, the CWA, which for more than 20 years has represented community groups that own and manage woodland. The CWA currently has around 140 member groups spread across Scotland, and it still deals with a steady stream of requests for support from existing groups, as well as people seeking opportunities to get involved in woodland management. Once we've heard from all 3 speakers, you'll then have a chance to ask any questions you have by posting your questions in the chat or by using the raise hand function. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Rachel to give us the first presentation.
Thank you very much, Karen, and good evening to everybody. So thank you, Scarlett, for the first slide. So yes, hello everybody, and in our time tonight we're going to share some slides to give some background on our Northwest 2045 project, which is anchored by Asset Development Trust and funded via the Highland Council on behalf of Scottish Government. And we'll give you some insights into how we have approached our place-based collaborative working so far. So next slide, please, Scarlett. So what is the Land Use Partnership? The Scottish Government began this phase of the Regional Land Use Partnership Initiative back in 2021. 4 bodies across Scotland took forward this pilot programme. South of Scotland Enterprise and Partners, Loch Lomond and Trossachs National Park, Cairngorms National Park, and us, Northwest 2045, based in Northwest Sutherland, Northern Highlands, and us being a group of community, public and private sector representatives. In 2021, a Northwest 2045 vision was produced, contributed by everyone who wished to, across the area stretching from Betty Hill on the north coast and down to Achiltobui in the west. Next slide, please. So guided by this Northwest 2045 vision, and in considering why and how a Northwest 2045 regional land use partnership might function, an initial steering group was formed to oversee that project, this project. And the Northwest 2045 vision sets out the aims, including how we enable our communities to have a clear voice in shaping the prospects of our places and in decisions made about land and other natural resources. Next slide, please. So through this RLUP collaboration, and in the first 18 months or so, we undertook research, we delivered events, we inputted to the Scottish Government's RLUP network, all helping to develop a methodology whereby to help us build connections within community and to inform our local leads model. Next slide, please. We homed in one locality area, one community of place, that being Kinlochbervie on northwest Sutherland coast. We started to gauge interest in a project there, and this led to conversations with people who would then form our KLB Land Plus team, namely Denise MacDonald, who's a crofter and a third sector professional, Sophie Clark, a land sector professional and educator, and Sara, who's here tonight, who's a creative industries professional and, as we mentioned, Kinlochbervie estate owner. So these three talented community members took on the local leads role, bringing their different and multiple strands of knowledge, connections and experience to this project with really great positive impact. Next slide, please. Our collaboration in Kinlochbervie developed, and that included a successful application to the Ferns programme, which involved our paid KLB land lead team, Sara, Denise, Sophie, undertaking work together and with others with the aim of informing how the Northwest 2045 approach might develop around community wealth building, exploring how this might be generated, how this might be resourced via our place-based capitals, including natural capital. Next slide, please. Central to our approach is supporting integrated and intergenerational collaboration. We wanted to draw on the knowledge of those working and living on the land now and connect this to those who may become the crofters, the managers, the owners, the stewards of the future. Denise and Sara and Sophie have all taken time and care to reach out and listen to the parents, the young people, the community development officers, the community council, the Crazy and Clarks, landowners, and many more. We regularly link in with the pupil parliament meetings, wider Northwest School campus days, and attend the community council meetings, and are involved with numerous strands of local activity ongoing. Next slide, please. Our work is informing a model where we're pursuing a collaborative and equitable approach. We really value people on the ground for their time and their expertise, and as the Northwest 2040 vision promotes. The RLAP pilot ended in at the end of March, 2024. And then in April, Minister Mary McCallan announced the pilot would indeed move to a next stage. So this was good news and gave us confidence and, of course, resource to take our work to the next step. Next slide, please. So this collaborative work is building cross-community connections where before they may have been missing or scant. That's yielding progress, and it's enabling us to take forward action. We've ensured to heed the concerns of the community, including their worry if this was to be yet more consultation and no real action. So we could see there was really a need for a new dynamic for change. And we are hoping and thinking our Land Plus local leads model, this collaboration from the ground up, represents a useful and meaningful route to achieving this. Next slide, thanks. So although it's relatively early days for us, we are hoping this work is helping to embed an integrated and action-oriented approach. Sara is demonstrating how a landowner can be an active part of a team of positive change makers within their community. The willingness of Sara, Denise and Sophie and others to work together is really testament to the trust and effort they're willing to put in. And we really hope this might inspire confidence in others to do likewise. So I shall pass on to Sara now, who can say some more on this and share her experiences of working with us within this Northwest 2045 Land Plus project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. So I think what you've just said there about working as a team is probably the kind of critical part of this, that we are absolutely a team. Denise, Sophie and I respect each other. There's no hierarchy, and we are absolutely wonderfully supported by Rachel and also Lizzie Williams, who's down in Akeltibui, and other kind of members of the Land Plus team, some local, another local crofter, Boyd, the repopulation officer, and Ewan from the Asset Development Trust, and many, many others who have supported us in this work. And really what we've done is we've taken time to meet people and listen to people and find out, as Rachel indicated earlier, what the community wants from the land. And I suppose at the heart of the Regional Land Use Partnership, it's about landowners, crofters and communities working together for the benefit of the community and also for the benefit of the land and the water and the sea around us. And that's really what we've been doing. So last year, we spent a lot of time talking and, well, actually listening rather than talking, and talking to people in not just going to community councils, but actually going into people's homes and speaking to many, many people who might be perceived as hidden voices. So maybe people who are not on the community council or the community development company, maybe a crofter's partner rather than the actual crofter. And as Rachel said, absolutely talking to the children and young people and young adults in the area. And the work we've done in the school, I think we're all incredibly proud of just the amazing energy that's come from the schools. So we've been along to quite a few pupil parliaments. And so this presentation here, so the themes that you can hopefully see on the left-hand side, this was us putting together all the themes that we'd collected from the conversations in the community that we presented to the pupil parliament. And I think one of the things that's really exciting and interesting, this is just evolving. We're going in a very kind of peaceful, calm way. We are present, we are listening, we're hearing, we're absolutely trying to be really action focused. And things are just beginning to kind of snowball. So one of the things that came up from the community of all ages was that they wanted more paths. And the Geopark is now looking into the possibility of that and the possibility of an accessible path. The school are interested in a school farm, and the local community, quite a lot of people said that they wanted to, have a community allotment. And actually, Rachel won't even know this, but I had an amazing conversation with two members of the community on Saturday who work the land, who basically are going to help us move that forward. We've already got the input from the crofters that whenever, once we know exactly what the young people in the school are looking for, whether it's animals and grown vegetables or both or whatever, that they're up for finding a space for them. And now we've got community who are coming on board with that. So I think that project will absolutely move forward. I think we've all understood that in order to make Kinlochbervie thrive, we need to pull together as a community. And that has, you'll see, if you can see on this screen, there are things like preschool and care of the elderly, which are not necessarily on the surface things to do with the land, but they are 100%, because if you've not got a nursery and you've not got after preschool and after school care, you won't have a community actually living there. So actually getting involved in all these different areas have been critical. In the way that housing, building more houses, we're absolutely exploring that. Leisure facilities, whether that be a skate park, whether that be a mountain bike trail, whether that be a swimming pool. Again, if it's allowing the community to thrive and grow, and also we're looking at things, which will absolutely biodiversity-wise be good. Clearly looking at deer management, looking at cleaning up the area, and it's really exciting. I've never been involved in a project that's got so much purpose and so much meaning. And I go into the local shop and people start chatting about this project and what they want to get involved with. The reason I've got Pudsey pictures there, that's another bit of the project we've been doing. Pudsey came to the Northwest 2045. So that's me and Pudsey in Kinlochbervie High School when the primary schools of Durness and Scarry and Kinlochbervie were also there. And Pudsey went to Achiltibui and to Lochinver and to Ullapool, and also went into the old folks home. And, it's another example of just stuff that wasn't necessarily happening before. Lots of amazing stuff was happening before. We're not reinventing the wheel, but just trying to show that actually the Northwest 2045 matters and is really important. And I think the young people in the area in particular are being able to demonstrate demonstrate how proud they are of living in Kinlochberthy, and through the manifesto work that we've done in the school that's been shared with Scottish Government, I think that's amazing. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now because that's probably enough of me. But it's been such a privilege for me to be involved in the project. I'm involved, yes, I'm a landowner, but I'm involved because I'm a member of the community, and like the others involved, we all care about the community. And I suppose maybe one final thing to end on is, I think sometimes we talk about landowners or crofters or community, but there are so many intersections. You know, each of us as individuals have got so many different bits of us that I think maybe just taking away the labels and trying to work together is probably why this project is working so well.
That's brilliant, Sarah, and I think that's your final comment about taking away the labels is probably a very good kind of take-home message from this whole session. So Scarlett's just stopped sharing the slides. So store up your questions for Rachel and Sarah until you'll get a chance to ask those when the presentations are complete. But now I'll hand over to Andy Rockall, the Director of the Community Woodlands Association.
Excuse me. Thank you, Karen. And good evening, everybody. As Karen said in the introductory remarks, the Community Woodlands Association represents about 140 member community groups dispersed across Scotland that between them manage something of the order of several tens of thousands of hectares of land and woodland. There is a wide range of arrangements under which that land is managed by the communities. Roughly speaking, 50% of our member groups own the land they manage. The other 50% is in some form of lease arrangement. So obviously there's a relationship there between the community and the landowner. Some of those lease arrangements are fairly formal, fully solicited up, and some of them are less formal, more along the lines of a funny handshake between the community and the landowner. I can understand the reasons for both. In the case of formally lawyered up, there's all sorts of protections for both parties, and in the case of something much less formal, it enables people to be much more flexible in their relationship and still allows the ability to walk away both sides if they wish to do it. But what I was asked to talk about was how communities might initiate, I think, a conversation with landowners. From what I've just said, you'll understand there's a whole range of permutations in the arrangement. I can't possibly run through all those different permutations. There's other things to consider as well. What if the existing landowner is a public agency, not a private individual? There's different considerations for the communities in dealing with either of those. Something in the communication and the interaction depends on the nature of the first approach. Who's first approaching the other? Which party is making the initial attempt to talk? And perhaps critically also, is the land for sale or not? There's no reason why communities in today's world can't bring up the landowner and say, we'd like involvement of your bit of land. We'd like to lease it. We'd like to own it. I suggest you might do some homework before you go out and do that there. So what I've done is I've tried to draw out a few points for discussion and conversation that where the community might start from. I have left out considerations of how the community like to structure itself, not talking about organizational structure, governance, legal form, or anything like that, just starting points for conversation. So it starts before you talk to the landowner. The community, let's say you're an individual in the community, you've got a great idea, we'd like to get involved in this land. A single person in the community is probably not going to have as much weight as if they have engaged the community as fully as possible, done a lot of the things that Sarah has described in terms of, and Rachel have described in terms of talking to other members of the community, listening to them. No reason why an individual can't initiate those things. And sought to get agreement as far as you can within the community about what the community would like to do, what objectives they have, what benefits they would like to deliver them for themselves. Some of our member groups are very focused on biodiversity benefits, some are mental health benefits, some are physical health benefits. Some of our member groups have all of the above. But those have all come about because of agreement amongst the community group. So take the time to agree what you want, which allows you to speak as one voice. Because when it does come to the time to go and talk to the landowner, you don't need 6 people doing it, each with a different objective. So there's a lot of time involved in preparing your position, if you like, before you start talking to the landowner. You should also be realistic about what you want to do as a community, recognizing that things always in the third sector and community groups always take longer than you expect them to do. Just be realistic about that. It just takes a long time to get things done. You ask me to do something next Tuesday, I might find I've got something else in my diary, I simply can't do it. You need to be realistic about that. You should also be clear when you're trying to engage community members about the commitment you're asking them to make. And you want, critically, I think you need to share the load. We have member groups where individuals are essentially carrying the whole of the organization, the whole of the community group they have. And those groups tend to struggle. So you need to engage not just people's willingness and agreement around the idea, but their willingness and agreement to do things. And you should also, I think, seek out sources of advice and support. In the case of woodlands, clearly that's Community Woodlands Association. I would say that, but there's an awful lot of information on our website, a whole load of resources. There are other agencies and organizations out there. So when you talk to a landowner, I suggest start slowly. Nobody likes, worst case scenario, demands. If you as a community go to the landowner and demand that they come to a public meeting because you want to buy the land off them, that's probably not going to be a conciliatory starting point. I suggest you start slowly, one-on-one conversations. We're organising a community to thinking about doing some things. We'd like to talk with you. And don't be scared to take the initiative and also project confidence in representing your community. But it needs to take time. It needs to take time to build an agreement. Also worth building the relationship, as clearly as happened between Rachel and Sarah. Building the relationship is vitally important and crucial to success. That means for community, understanding landowners' pressures and agendas and what they might want to do. Take some time getting to know each other. That's really important. And then you have the opportunity to build on common interests. These discussions and negotiations, people don't often think of them as that, but they are a negotiation. And it's important that in a negotiation, you listen to what is said and reflect and respond thoughtfully, considerately, and actively, rather than just react on something you haven't liked. If you haven't liked it, that doesn't mean you should instantly react without taking the time and the moment to think about it. If you reach decisions and agreements, it's worth keeping a note and sharing that note and agreeing it. We've all, in our day-to-day lives, our working lives, come out of meetings with different interpretations of what's gone on. In relationships between communities and landowners around acquisition management of bits of land, it's quite important there's clarity of understanding of what's been agreed and decisions that have been made. So I'd suggest you keep a note. I'm not a person that likes too much record keeping, but there are some things you do need to record. It's important to keep momentum going. So once you've brought all these people together, open discussions towards your objectives, it's worth keeping things moving along. And I think my reflection looking across the membership of CWA is that success, and I think this goes back to really early days of the groups, success comes from consistency of effort from a group of people, not an individual. When too much depends on an individual, things can go awry. Individuals get overloaded. Individuals have lives. We all have lives. Individuals can move away. A group of people tends not to. So success comes from consistency of effort from a group of people, and that starts on day one when communities begin to think about these things. I hope that's just a few pointers. As I say, I can't possibly get into the detail of every situation, but I'm very happy to answer personal questions, detailed questions, and I refer you again to CWA's website as a resource for you to use.
Thanks, Andy. That was brilliant, really practical advice there. And I'm glad we've got it recorded, because it's almost like a sort of little toolkit you just gave us right there. And the invitation to ask personal questions is extra appreciated. Now's your chance to raise your hand and ask questions, or put questions in the chat. I'm noticing some questions coming up now. So I've got one from David saying, could someone identify the main advantages for landowners in negotiating with community groups? That's a good question. How do you share that sort of issue of what might be the mutual benefits of engaging with the process? Would any of our speakers like to? Great.
As a landowner, the benefit for me and my family to engage with the community is we're part of the community. The land is not, it's a crofting estate, but even if it wasn't a crofting estate, I don't perceive, it might be in my name, but the land is used by everybody in the local community, and they should have access and have a voice as to how that land is managed. So it just feels, I don't see it as an advantage. It just feels the right thing to do. I'm not doing this because I'm wanting to gain this, that, and the next thing, but it's the right thing to do, is actually listening and respecting other people who live on the land. Now, we might not all agree about everything, and it might be that different crofters disagree with things, or members of the community, but I think everybody's voice and opinion as to land use in the local area needs to be listened to. So, yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Sara. Yeah, we in the Good Practice team at the Commission, we do a lot of work with landowners who are interested in in good practice. We've got a kind of program called Leadership in Good Practice, and we're often bringing together rooms full of landowners and managers who are keen, many expressing just what you said as well, just that sort of desire to do the right thing. And those people are out there, and the culture change work of the Commission is sort of a lot of it geared towards encouraging that almost sort of peer-to-peer sharing between different folk in that position, so that that culture of kind of openness and transparency and willingness to talk about possibilities becomes more the norm. Now, have we any other questions there from our participants?
I actually had a question. I hope you don't mind, Karen,
Go for it, Scarlett.
It's been so interesting to listen to all of you this evening. My question is about the NW 2045 project. So looking at that kind of final graphic, Sara, that you sort of shared, and you looked at all the different things that the community wants from the land. How do you guys go about balancing all those priorities? Because obviously that goes across generations, and there's some big asks and there may be some quick wins in there, but how do you decide where to put that energy first, and how to sort of prioritize those things?
Rachel, do you want to go, or do you want me to go?
You carry on, Sara. Thank you.
I think all of them are important, because all of them have been identified, and you're right, some, like the swimming pool, the leisure activities kind of side of things, that's a big ask, And then things like, you know, the paths are hopefully, touch wood, a wee bit easier. But I think keeping all of the plates spinning feels like the right thing to be doing, because actually they're all connected. You know, they might seem like very different things, but there are connections between them all. So, for instance, the crofting and the deer management, you know, it's crofters who are up for helping the school farm and the community allotment. There's, you know, there's so many intersections. So what I'm trying to do, along with Denise and Sophie, and Rachel and Lizzie and the wider team, is just keep all of these things kind of front of mind, so that we can, as conversation, in a way, I think we're almost like marriage makers. That's kind of what I feel in a way we're doing at the moment, is that, you know, we're aware of the needs and the wants of the community. So if I'm in a meeting with Highland Council, I'm thinking about all of this stuff and mentioning it as and when, or if we bump it. We had a brilliant Northwest 2045 event up in Durness, where members of the community and various other people came. So I met the chief exec of the Crofters Commission. So that's fantastic, you know, so making sure that he's aware of the work that we're doing, and just really seizing opportunities and not being scared to just let things go at their own pace. Because, you know, I didn't expect, the conversation I had on Saturday kind of came out of nowhere, and that's going to suddenly, I think, propel the, you know, having the community allotment in the school farm, and in a way where I was slightly struggling to see how we move that forward, and that's suddenly come out of nowhere. So I think being open, being present, being open, and people, it's a bit like, I think often, I used to work at the BBC, and I always found that meetings that you had there, you would have lovely meetings, but actually most of the most effective meetings might be meetings you had walking along a corridor, or going to the canteen, or, you know, being at making a cup of tea or whatever. And I think that's the same that's going for our work in Kinlochbervie. Because we're present, unexpected conversations pop up here, there and everywhere, and we just are trying to connect stuff. But yeah, lots of plate spinning, which is exciting.
I think the last slide that we had prepared, which maybe we could show if Scarlett's feeling deft enough to be able to do that. And it just had 4 key points, which I think reflect what Sara's saying. And this was us trying to think about, how do we say, you know, how do you do it yourself as such? You know, how can we share what our experiences are and make what we're talking about feel possible? And Sara's just described, it's the people-to-people connections, to start creating collaborations and start with those open conversations, you know, and you're respecting the multiple knowledges, you're aware of the dynamics. We're all aware of the number of dynamics that exist within our communities, but draw from that diversity and draw it in, and see that potential then in that mutual exchange and the reciprocity, and find the common ground through the needs and the opportunities. And by taking action with those small steps, and through that, you're building these relationships. And Andy said about taking the time to connect and stay connected. And I think that's so important. And Sara is brilliant at this. She's so considerate and careful about remaining connected, wanting to manage these relationships. So I really think that integrity pays dividends. It really does, in multiple ways. And when we were talking about that plurality of capitals within the community, that is so true, that these things spin out, things take their own pace. And of course, that's what us within sort of community development sphere wish to happen. We can't do it all. We want to catalyse, convene, and then to support that through some capacity that we can bring to let those things then take their natural lead. And I think that's probably at the heart of what we're doing, and learning all the time about how to sustain this. So it's really good to be in these discussions, to listen to others and how they've done that, and then hopefully, you know, share what we're doing to help to make these connections happen ongoing. So thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Scarlett.
And I think the other thing that we are doing is constantly checking back in. I think it could be very easy just to kind of get carried away. You know, we've collected the themes, and so we're going to go off on this path, but just constantly checking back in with community, and making sure that they are comfortable with anything that the Land Plus team are doing is really important. And so, you know, I go along to Community Council meeting every month, so that, I can feed back as to what we're doing so that everybody in the community council is aware. And I think actually that's another good suggestion, is if you can get your landowners to go along to community council meetings, then great.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sorry, Karen.
Sorry, did you have a final comment you were wanting to make there?
I was going to say that I was full of admiration for Sarah's commitment to doing that, and we all recognise that that can be quite a prospect, I think, to go along to a community council. So I think that respect goes both ways. The community council were full of respect for Sarah going, but Sarah was very respectful about where she was also entering into. So that was a really important thing to be aware of as well. Thank you.
Great.
I think what Andy said though about building relation. I mean, I think that's the common thing with this, isn't it? That actually it's about relationships. It's about respecting each other. It's about trusting each other, and yeah, just wanting the very best for your community.
Absolutely. And yeah,
I was going to say, sorry, I think in my opinion, land for too long in Scotland has been divisive, and this is about coming together around common objectives to do with land.
yeah.
And that's what
think
members communities are trying to do, and that's what some landowners are trying to do, as Sarah obviously is. I
was going to ask you one more thing, Andy, which was because obviously the Community Woodland Association has been going for 20 odd years, and so you've got folk in there, groups in there who have decades now of experience. And from working with those groups, what changes do you see in communities that have had that chance to make that connection and build on it over a long period of time?
CWA grew out of community woodlands. So there was a selection of community woodland groups, small, isolated, dispersed across largely the north of Scotland, that wanted a national representative body that could offer networking, training, support. And that's how CWA was founded. So we grew from groups. Some of the groups, the longest standing community woodland group in Scotland is 1987. So some community woodlands have been around for a wee while. I can think of one that the community coalesced around community woodland probably 20 years ago. And they now have 14 part-time jobs. And they've gone from very focused initially 20 years ago, community woodland, and they now have a campsite. They now have a tree nursery. They run training schemes for people with additional supports in their own vegetable gardens that are providing food to their local community. And in the last couple of years, because the local authority is withdrawing from provision of services, this community woodland group, inverted commas, has built 2 toilet blocks because Highland Councils was not doing it, and this group had a particular issue with visitors. The changes that have gone on in that community, one of their board members said to me, the community woodland gave us heart. It gave us a heart. Before that, we were a dispersed community on a planned kind of crofting village along a road, essentially, which the tourists just drove through, and the residents weren't very connected to each other, and now they are. And that takes a long time. It's great. It's fantastic. And I see that it's a privilege of my job to work with people that are doing that for themselves largely. And they have brought, I don't know how much money they brought into their community over their 20 years, but it'll be if it's not in 7 figures, it'll be really close to it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And that thing about working with land having impacts that are much bigger than land. I can see it in the Northwest 2045 project, and it's definitely there in the Community Woodlands Association, and it's a real inspiration. And I know we could talk about that all evening. We're running out of time. Scarlett, I need to hand back to Scarlett because if we're going to to finish on time, which we really try to do, I should hand over back to Scarlett. But before I do so, I would really love to thank our three speakers, and thanks for their great presentations and their inspiring work. And do get in touch with them if you've got further questions. You'll see the links in the chat now.